to step up, out of it. I think of it as like you have a view from down on the ground, you get in an airplane, you look down, everything looks a little different. You see more possibilities, more options, a wider view. And that's what comes with that deep breath. That's why I sit and meditate and do things like that. So that when I need to soothe myself, I'm not so comfortable with putting my car in neutral and letting the RPM slow down. Mentally speaking, neutral is not thinking.
Mhm.
The Western world doesn't know of not thinking. That we're so content oriented, that it gets uncomfortable to soothe into that quiet space. It's like
It's
fidgety.
funny because it goes with silence too. Like
Yep.
our society is also not usually comfortable with silence. Like
Yep.
at the dinner table, I know at my parents, it was more silent at the table,
Yeah.
just talking when we had something. But
Mhm.
uh, I realized when going to friends or girlfriend house or whatever that no, that doesn't. They'll keep saying the same thing if just to fill
Yes, just to fill the space. Yeah, it's dead space. We got to do something. Yeah. You don't. You don't. You're not. This is not a TV show where that channel has to always be broadcasting. You
uh,
can just be here.
mm,
I'll be here with your people.
mm,
Be here and just focus on how you feel and how glad you are that you're sitting at this dinner table silently. How cool is that?
mm,
In full acceptance and trust. Then I don't have to say anything.
mm,
Yep. Where does that monkey mind get its uncomfortableness? I think is really, at the root of it, that question. And I can't answer it for anybody else.
mm,
But that uncomfortable, fidgety sensation that you have to fill the space and not just go to an empty space and just, be here now, as Ram Dass said. Um, for me, it's a fear place. That finicky, panicky. I mean, anybody that's been in the hospital in a lot of pain knows that feeling.
mm,
You know, where you wish this moment was over because it hurts so much, or it's so scary, or so uncomfortable. I think everybody has that mode available. You don't have to give it time. You don't have to invest yourself in it and believe that the thoughts that you're thinking right now that are making you feel this way are real. That I don't have to invest myself in it. It was just what happened in my head, you know, and I've got the capability to step up out of it and go, yeah, I don't agree. I don't agree with the thoughts that led me over the past 10 minutes, the thoughts that made me say, wait a minute, I haven't jumped in a while, so I should be nervous, right? It's an unconscious play that we have.
mm,
But what if we took all that time away and said, I know how to jump. I know how to do it. I know where my handles are. I got this. And you just throw away this belief and judgment that not current means always more dangerous.
yeah. I
And
think it's useful as a signal still to tell yourself, okay, I'll simplify things and just go on. Uh,
yeah,
but
I
more
mean,
than that,
I think to me, it's a determination that every individual has to have to not tolerate negative thoughts that are demeaning you and giving you a false picture of a negative future. The future's not here yet, so how can you assume that you're in danger or not going to do it right? You're going to screw up the skydive or something like that. It's all just thinking until it's actually happening. You're
mm,
just projecting a possible dream, and if you don't like that dream, look someplace else. Like the tree in front of you as you're coming into land. Stop looking at the tree.
mm,
you know in in between looking at the tree and the spaces between things that will immediately make you feel better, there has to be the realization that I have gotten addicted in my focus towards a mental thought stream that's not serving me.
mm,
And that's what the Eastern masters have been trying to teach us for so long, because like, God, those Westerners are just so freaking neurotic. So sort of nervous and trying to fill the space and uncomfortable, and they need things to be a certain way for them to be content and happy.
uh,
And that means you're not going to be content and happy very often because we don't always get what we want. So that's yeah. So I mean, I do find that um the mental component of skydiving, I think, is the hardest part.
Yeah. And the beauty is that it's the best activity that makes it grow. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And the mastery of the mind yields this amazing experience that allows you to not just jump out of an airplane, but do it in style. Yeah, do it with the right mindset where you're happy and groovy, where you're aware of everything, you're comfortable, you're empowered instead of fearful, you're leaning into it. We're capable of sort of cleaning our minds out a little bit and doing it right. We're capable of soothing ourselves in the airplane in a way that's effective. Um, when to me, that's not content based. Somebody's riding to altitude before they jump, they have nobody can really soothe you. I mean, maybe a good instructor, an experienced person puts their hand on the knee of somebody who's nervous, and maybe it helps to a certain degree because they gave permission for that to work. But bottom line is when you look at a twin otter, all these people sitting there waiting to ride to altitude, they're all going through their own process, which is a little different from everybody else to
Different
get their head,
stage.
yeah, get their head square, get into a state of true readiness.
Mhm.
Not nervous hypervigilance, but an easy, comfortable flow state where you allow it to happen. For me, the best skydives were if the whole thing felt easy. It was very graceful, and I wasn't trying. I was just enjoying, the flying.
The best landing also, like it just sounds like every time it felt easy, so you think it was probably too smooth or too not fast or whatever, but then you look at the numbers and wow, this is my best swoop ever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's true. It's true. Yeah, the mind is everything. Your mind is manifesting the entire experience. But yeah, the flow state is such an interesting um room in the house of the mansion of the mind. It's one of the rooms, right? Where you have mastery over something. You go into the situation with a state of well-being. You're hydrated, you're well fed, you're in the at least well enough, and you're in the right mood. And so everything just flows out of you and time gets really weird, like
Yeah,
feels like it's
space time.
forever.
Yeah.
And then you look kind of go, hey, it was over so quickly. It depends on how you look at it, but in the moment it feels slow, I think.
These days I do the analogy of gravity is flow state for stretching space time. Like it's
I Yeah. 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 Well, I mean, maybe it is, for at least from the subjective experience.
yeah,
Because clocks can measure time for sure, but it can't measure human time, experiential time.
yeah.
I mean, I've
But
had,
our clock changes in that same second, and there's yeah, time can feel so longer or not. Like driving to if you have a 6 hour drive to do, you don't complain after 2 hours. Like, but if you have 20 minutes to do after 8 minutes, you're it's like it's just well, that's more relative comparison, but
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
flow state particularly like in these days I tell my kids too that maybe that's one of the secret of happiness is flow state. When you do your dishes, if you get kind of excited at finishing stuff, organizing or doing it well, it becomes a project and you're
mhm.
it's mundane tasks that can feel whether good or something.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I think that is the road to happiness is seeking out the flow state and not hating on the moments that are complicated. I just call it first gear moment where things are a little bit hard because you don't have a lot of knowledge and skill in
Mhm.
this area, right? Or it's complicated and unexpected and you're adapting. All right, it's not exactly a flow state in that regard, but you can still enjoy it if you're not labeling it as less than because you're comparing it to other experiences where you have mastery and you're comfortable and you're in trust. Um, it's not bad. It's just different. The hard times that are, where the adventure turns into misadventure. there's all this labeling that the mind wants to do that puts us, kind of circling the drain of negativity because of the way we're interpreting the events, and feeling that need to label, I think, is the problem. Why label? Why judge? Just it is what it is, and I'm going to try to make the best of it, whatever it is. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of great books on happiness and what seems to increase the likelihood of somebody experiencing happiness on a regular basis. Um, Fascinating. And it's not always about a million choices. It's not always about having $1 million. There's lots of very, very people that live in a meager life that are very content and very happy. Yeah, it can be done. I mean, I think that you can be rich and happy too. It's possible.
And sometimes I'd say it's always a comparison with the base. Like if your base is now rich, you'll compare yourself to tomorrow. You had $1 million, so now you need a differential, or that's growth. But
Yep,
and
the
which
frame
is
of
a
reference.
typical answer that find very Western oriented that you need to grow for. Yes, it's evolution oriented, but not everyone is necessarily need that to be anyway. So I don't
Yeah,
know. It,
yeah, yeah. I think it's our comparisons that really bring our energy, our emotional energy down the most. Yeah, I mean, my friend
uh,
Mike, who one of the Malone jumpers,
yeah, it's one thing.
that no, not that one.
Sorry.
Mike Fay. I talked to him a little bit. I think it was you weren't there for one of the sessions, but he got out of skydiving, flying airplanes for a living. He was flying like the corporate jet for fish and stuff like that. Cool guy. He actually provided our first airplane at VSA. He bought the Hershey Bird. But he got out of skydiving, got into polo, riding horses and all that stuff. And his horse tripped a year and a half ago. Both front legs went down. He went right off the end, landed right on his head, and broke his neck. And he's quadriplegic now.
Oh.
And it's interesting because he hasn't gone into, at least from what I can tell from conversations, he hasn't gone into a horrible deep depression. He certainly, he talks about, when he compares what his life was like when he was jumping out of planes and he could do whatever he wanted to, and now he's limited. But he's got such a resilient attitude that he went into acceptance. Like I don't know how quickly, but fairly quickly he accepted this is my situation, and then he got into the question and answer process of what can I still do? What can I do now? And he's managed to reach a point where he's got a little motor control on his arms a little bit. One of his hands kind of sort of works, and so he's able to drive a car. And he drove down to West Addison to Oli's place. Nobody was there, he said, but he drove down to the drop zone just to be there as an excuse to get out and do something. And he's exercising his freedom, and he hasn't gone into the deep depression that most people fear that they would have
Yeah.
if they were in his shoes.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, if you just sort of accept it as it is, if you can't change it, what else are you going to do? Struggling against it and beating yourself up isn't going to help. You can't undo the past. So now it's about, asking bigger questions like, if there is such a thing as a soul contract and a soul journey, is this for my learning? Because I think everything, it doesn't happen to us, it happens for us.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so that's, we've been having that discussion. It's like, well, is there something, in your life that maybe you are getting signals to slow down and smell the flowers, so to speak, to be more contemplative and more, within your mind, and not just defining everything as the physical world, and get more into the miraculous non-physical world. And he is. Yeah, it's really interesting. Whether I think likely that's kind of the way it went. It was like the universe will tap, tap, tap on your shoulder. If you ignore it, it'll hit you kind of hard in the shoulder. And then eventually it's, the sledgehammer over the head. It's like, you weren't listening. You needed to slow down. And here's your broken leg. or whatever.
Mhm.
I believe that that's the subconscious mind can do that.
Mhm.
I believe that.
Mhm.
It helps me sleep at night
Yeah,
instead of thinking of everything as random chance and, oh, bad luck. Geez, sucks to be you.
I
What
think,
if,
yeah.
what if it happened for a reason?
Mhm.
What if,
I think there's always an outcome, and when it's positive, we measure it as it it produced that,
Yeah.
and about the deterministic nature of most things, or because now you immediately compare to a baby, a child dying at 2 years old or something. There's whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
But some of it, yes, and self-induced subconscious consciously, yeah, that
Yeah,
can be,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Mm,
it's hard in the moment, like I mean, when the shit's hitting the fan, you're like, no, this just sucks.
this
And then
cannot.
years later, you look back on it and that actually did something for me that
Mm,
helped me in a way that nothing else was.
mm,
And it helped reach me, change my course in some way or whatever.
mm,
Uh, I think it does work that way. I mean, everybody's got their own cosmology as to whether, we die when we die, or if we continue, or if we get recycled and get born again and again. Everybody's got their perspective, and it's fine. You're probably going to change your perspective as time goes on anyway.
yeah.
But I think at least to leave a little bit of wiggle room with your certainty, especially about whether life and death is what we thought it was, whether the church was right about what they taught, or the scientists that said no, when your heart stops, that's that. you know
Mm,
maybe we have a little wiggle room about all of it to say, maybe, I don't know,
yeah.
that's
Let some doors open, but not.
just, yeah,
Mm,
leave a crack open. Maybe
yeah.
the Buddhists are right.
Uh,
And then when you're in that place, then you can start learning, exploring things that you wouldn't have otherwise.
mm,
That it's up to every human to just continue to research, and find out, new information from, near death experiencers that have really weird things, or they're coding on the table and the doctors are working on them. Nurse, give me the thing. And the person is like watching the whole thing, and he sees the doctor drop a surgical tool on the ground. He goes, ah, yeah, and he says something. And then the guy comes back the next day because they resuscitated. They're like, I saw you drop. You could not have. Or they see something down the hall or across the
mhm,
street because they went woo over there. There's so many thousands. 1 in 25 people have had that some sort of a near death experience. It's a
mhm,
lot. It's a lot, but nobody wants to talk about it because it's kind of scary. You don't want to sound like an idiot.
yeah.
So yeah, I've become very interested in that stuff since it happened to me. Yeah,
Mhm,
it's just like really, again, another one is I was shoved into it. I didn't have a choice.
mhm,
This was the learning that I was going to have, and it opened my mind a lot. I was
mhm,
I was already a pretty open-minded guy, honestly, but I'm even more open-minded about it. Um, yeah. So worth looking into anyway, I think.
yeah.